Okay, so on page 2, make sure that you have, because a lot of these are going to be dealing with two different angles, make sure that you have all your trig formulas, because you're probably going to use some of those sum and difference ones, and maybe some double angle at the bottom. So have that ready. So let's look at number 11. Number 11 has the sine of inverse sine of 1/2, so that's one angle, plus the inverse cosine of 0, which is a different angle. So I really have the sine of one angle plus another one. Now you do have a formula for the sine of alpha plus beta, but I'm going to do this one a little different, and I'll do this one differently because it works. It won't work on these because I do know the inverse sine of 1/2. What angle has a sine of 1/2? That would be when x is radical 3/2, so that would be pi over 6, plus what angle has a cosine of 0? So that would be when the x value is 0. Remember, cosine goes from 0 to pi, so that would be at pi over 2. Now, you could use your trig sum and difference formula and take the sine of pi over 6, sine of the first times the cosine of the second, plus the cosine of the first times the cosine of the second. But because I know both these angles, I also can say that this pi over 2 is 3 pi over 6. And so when I add these two together, I could add them together when I know the two angles. So it's going to be the sine of 4 pi over 6, which is really the sine of 2 pi over 3. And I know the sine of 2 pi over 3. That's the y value. So at 2 pi over 3, I go negative 1/2 over and radical 3 over 2 up. So with this one, you can actually get these two angles, add them together, and then take the sine of that angle. Okay? And when you get down to 12, you can't do that because this also is an angle, and so is this one. They're two different angles, but I don't know what angle has a sine of 3/5. So all I can do is I'm going to call that alpha, and I'm going to call that beta, and I'm going to have to find the sine of alpha minus beta. So over here, I'm going to draw the picture. Picture of alpha is in the first quadrant. It's the sine, so it's y over r. So x is 4. I'm going to label that alpha so I don't forget that one's alpha. I'm going to draw beta. Beta's inverse cosine of a negative 4/5, so it's over in the second quadrant. It's x over r, so then the y value would be 3, so that angle is beta. So I've got my picture of alpha, and I got my picture of beta. So when I go to my formula sheet, sine of alpha minus beta says I'm going to take the sine of alpha. So the sine of alpha, here's alpha, sine is 3/5, times the cosine of beta, so I go to beta, the cosine is negative 4/5, minus the cosine of alpha, so cosine of alpha is 4/5, times the sine of beta is 3/5. So I'm just filling in what the formula for sine of alpha minus beta says to do. Sine of alpha, cosine of beta, minus cosine alpha, sine beta. And then when I multiply those, I'm going to get negative 12 over 25, negative 12 over 25. Here I'm going to get a negative 12 over 25. So when I add those together, I get negative 24 over 25. Okay, so you did have to draw a picture for those two. And that method would have worked on number 12 as well if you wanted to do it that way. All right, 13, same thing. We're going to draw, this is going to be an alpha and this is going to be a beta. So I'm looking for the secant of alpha plus beta. I don't have a formula for secant of alpha plus beta, but I do have a formula for the cosine of alpha plus beta. So I'm going to get that answer and then I'm going to flip it. So let's draw our pictures of alpha and beta. Alpha, the first angle, is sine is 5/13. So I draw that in. This is alpha. And I believe this is a Pythagorean triple we should know, so that would be 12. If you don't know that, you take x squared plus 25 equals 169 and solve for x. Inverse tan for beta is 3/4. So that's y over x. And so again, that's an ordered triple we should know, so there's beta. So there's my two pictures of alpha and beta. So I'm going to do the cosine of alpha plus beta. That says I take the cosine of the first angle, so cosine would be 12/13, times the cosine of the second angle. Cosine would be 4/5 of beta, minus the sine of alpha, 5/13, times the sine of beta, which would be 3/5. And so I'm going to get 48 over 65 minus 15 over 65. That's going to give me 33 over 65. But remember, that's the cosine. I wanted the secant, so my final answer is I have to flip that, take the reciprocal. So it's going to be 65 over 33. So after I figured out what alpha and beta look like, I wanted to find this cosine of alpha minus beta, so I used the formula. Got cosine of alpha minus beta, but then I have to take the reciprocal. All right, let's look at 14. Now, pi over 4 I know what that looks like. I'll still call that alpha, and then I'll call that one beta. I don't know inverse cosecant of 3/5. So I'm going to have to draw a picture of the beta. I don't think I have to draw a picture of pi over 4. I know what that looks like, but I'm still calling it alpha, so that I'm looking for the formula of cosine of alpha minus beta. So let me draw a picture of beta. Inverse cosecant is 5/3, which means the sine is 3/5. That's the y over the r is 3/5, which means the x value is 4. That's beta. So let's use the formula for cosine of alpha minus beta. Since I take the cosine of the first, so what's the cosine of pi over 4? Radical 2 over 2 times the cosine of the second. Cosine of this one would be 4/5, that's beta. Cosine of alpha minus beta, then it's plus the sine of the first angle. The sine of pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2 times the sine of the second angle, which would be 3/5. And so when I multiply this, I'm going to get 4 radical 2 over 10. Here I'm going to get 3 radical 2 over 10. So 4 radical 2 over 10 plus 3 radical 2 over 10. Those are like terms. So when I put them together, I get 7 of those. 7 radical 2 over 10. Okay? So I was just adding them. But if you know an angle, you don't have to draw the picture. If you want to, you could draw a picture of alpha and say it's here, and just know that that's radical 2 over 2, radical 2 over 2 is the ordered pair. But you don't have to draw that picture if you know the angle. Okay, the last two are double angles. So realize it's cosine of 2 times that angle. Remember, that's naming an angle. So I'm really looking for the cosine of 2 theta, or alpha, whatever you want to call it. So let's draw a picture of that one angle I have. It's inverse cosine of 4/5. So the y value would be 3. So there's my angle, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm looking for the cosine of 2 theta. So when you go to your formulas, remember the cosine of 2 theta has 3 different formulas you could use. It doesn't matter which one you use. I'll use the 2 cosine squared theta minus 1. It really doesn't matter which one you use. So I drew my picture. I know I'm looking for the cosine of 2 theta. That's the formula for 2 theta. Here's my picture of theta. So now I just have to fill in 2 times. The cosine of 2 theta is 4/5. So I'm going to take 4/5 squared, because it says I want to take cosine squared, minus 1. So then to do the math, I have to square that first. So I'm going to get 2 times 16 over 25. And remember, this is 2 over 1. So when I multiply, I get 32 25ths minus 1, which is 25 25ths. And when I subtract those, I get 7 25ths. And that was the cosine. So when you see that 2 in front of there, you have to realize that's a double angle, cosine of 2 theta. Draw your picture of theta, figure out which formula you're going to use, and then just plug in the trig function you need to do that formula. And then real quick, the last one, again, this is a theta, that's an angle, so I'm really looking for the tangent of 2 theta. So when I draw the picture of theta, inverse secant is 3/2, which means inverse cosine is 2/3. So x is 2, r is 3, because the cosine is 2/3, And if I take, this is one that isn't quite as easy, I need to take 2 squared plus y squared equals 3 squared. 9 minus 4 is 5, so y is square root of 5. And so this is saying take the tangent of 2 theta. So my formula for tangent of 2 theta is 2 tan theta over 1 minus the tangent squared of theta. That's the formula for tangent of 2 theta. So there's my picture of theta. So I'm going to take 2 times. The tangent of theta is y over x, radical 5 over 2, over 1 minus that same value for tangent squared. All right, so let's first square that fraction there. And actually here the 2's will cancel if I want to simplify the top as well. So I get radical 5. Here I'm going to get 1 minus 5 over 4. I square that to get 5, square that to get 4. And then I would probably, you could add these together if you wanted to. I probably would just multiply by 4 over 4 right away to get rid of that 4. So I would get 4 radical 5 on the top in the numerator. Down here I'm going to get 4 minus 5. 4 times 1 is 4. 5 fourths times 4, the 4's cancel, I'm left with 5. So I get negative 1 here. So it's negative 4 radical 5. Because I get 4 radical 5 divided by negative 1. Okay, so that's the back side of that sheet.